Welcome to the first instrument flight lesson. In this lesson, we'll review the functional checks of radios and navigation equipment. As we've seen in our first lesson, these checks are performed in the last item of the after startup procedure. We'll also have to perform some instrument checks during taxi and before takeoff. Let's start. We'll start with the UHF radio test. Select the UHF position in the interphone control unit. This is a 3-position selector. UHF potentiometer pulled and volume adjusted properly. Function selector to both. Mode selector to preset. Check that channels change correctly using the channel selector. Adjust proper brightness level with the dim knob. We're now going to record a frequency in one of the channels. Right now we have one frequency in each channel pre-selected in the mission editor. What we're going to do is record a new frequency in channel 2. To do that, open the UHF cover. Select frequency 262 with the frequency selectors. This is the frequency for the control tower of the Cabuletti Airport, which we assume is going to be our destination airport today. Select channel 2 with the channel selector and press the UHF preset button. Close the cover. You'll now have the frequency of 262 MHz pre-selected in channel 2. Press the tone button and check the audio signal. Check that you have control over UHF radio. This is where the UHF transfer switch is illuminated. If it was off, the rear cockpit would have control. We'll now make a transmission and reception check in manual mode. To do that, change the mode selector to manual. Select frequency 263 MHz. Open the communications menu using the / key and contact the tower by pressing F1. This action simulates the push-to-talk function on the control stick. This is not the kind of communication we could expect at this moment, but let's give it the go-ahead.
Kudasi, in field 1-1, request taxi to runway. Enfield 1-1, Kutaisi, clear to taxi to runway 7.
Let's see now the functional test of the VHF radio equipment. Select VHF in the interphone control unit. This is a 3-position selector. VHF potentiometer pulled and volume adjusted properly. Power switch in control unit on. Press the test button and check that the display shows 188.888. Check that you have control over VHF radio. This is where the VHF transfer switch is illuminated. If it was off, the rear cockpit would have control. Let's make a transmission and reception check using the VHF frequency with the local tower. Select 134 MHz with frequency selectors. Open communications menu using the / key and contact the tower by pressing F2. Again, this communication doesn't have much sense as with the previous communications check, but it's good enough to check that the radios work properly.
Kudasi, infield 1-1. Abort takeoff. Infield 1-1. Taxi to parking area.
Now we'll do the VOR equipment test. VOR equipment on and proper volume set. Half volume is recommended to start. VOR potentiometer pulled and at half volume. Check that you've got control over navigation. Nav Cori illuminated. If it would be off, rear cockpit would have control. Check also that VOR is selected in VOR TACAN equipment Cori. VOR should be illuminated, otherwise HSI would display TACAN information. Select a nearby VOR frequency. In this case, Kutaisi 113.6 MHz, and identify its Morse signal, Kilo Tango. Push in the VOR potentiometer again. Check that the VOR needle in the RMI, the white single needle, displays correctly at radial 050, course 230 in this case. Rotate the HSI course selection knob until 230. Check that the CDI centers with the 2 indicator and the nav flag is not shown. Rotate the course selection knob left and right 5 and 10 degrees, checking that CDI shifts left and right 1 and 2 dots respectively. Rotate the course selector 180 degrees, checking that the indication swaps from to from, and the CDI centers again. We'll now perform the VOR functional test. Select course 315 in the HSI. Press VOR and markers test button and check that the 3 marker push button lights illuminate. VOR needle in the RMI points initially to 320. The CDI in the HSI shows a deviation of 1 dot, and then centers when the RMI needle points to 315. Let's proceed with the TACAN test. Check that the mode selector is in TR, Nav Illuminated in Navigation Query, and select TACAN in the VOR TACAN selector. TACAN potentiometer pulled and volume adjusted. Select or check that channel 44 X-ray is selected, which corresponds to the Kutaisi TACAN, and identify its Morse code. Push in again the TACAN potentiometer. Check correct bearing in the RMI needle, 138 degrees. Select course 180 in the HSI. Press shortly the Auto Test button. Check that the test light blinks. Miles display in the HSI goes off. The nav flag appears in the HSI. The TACAN needle in the RMI, or the yellow double needle, points to course 270 for about 7 seconds. The nav flag retracts and miles show 0. The TACAN needle points to course 180 with the CDI centered and 2 indication. The TACAN indication returns to normal. ADI test. Press the attitude test button. The sphere will show a pitch of 10 degrees and a roll of 20 degrees right. HSI test. No flags in sight. Check heading with standby magnetic compass. Emergency horizon test. Check that it's unlocked. The instrument test has been completed. We would now continue with the after startup procedures, which we will consider already performed, and therefore we'll proceed with the taxi clearance request. Press / to open up the communications menu and F1 to ask for taxi. Once ATC clearance is received, extend your landing lights to taxi position, or the intermediate position. Take into account that landing lights should not remain extended for more than 25 seconds in landing position when the aircraft is stopped, to avoid glass fracturing due to overheat. Select takeoff flaps to the intermediate position. Check that the area left and area right is clear and start taxiing. Check your brakes. Turn right on the taxiway and proceed to runway 08. During taxi, we check magnetic compass for the correct indication and free movement. The RMI with correct indication and no flags. The turn and slip indicator. Further forward, we have to make a right turn. Check that the turn indicator shifts right and the ball shifts slightly left. Check that the anemometer reads 0 knots. The altimeter, airfield elevation, 150 feet in this case. the variometer 0 feet per minute. Check that VOR and TACAN display correct bearing and distance. This should be done at a specific reference point. As this has already been checked in the parking position, we'll skip this test. Turn left to proceed to runway 08. Request takeoff clearance and check that the area is clear. Press / and F1. Once aligned on the runway, we check RMI and HSI heading, which should coincide with that of the magnetic compass and runway. We select nav aids for instrument departure and/or instrument approach. Let's suppose that we are cleared to keep, after takeoff, runway heading until 1,000 feet, and then turn right to intercept and follow radial 080 of Kutaisi VOR outbound, climbing to 6,000 feet. You are taxiing in the opposite direction. Make a 180-degree turn and proceed to runway 08. select course 080 in the HSI. Press the VOR TAC and equipment selector so that VOR label illuminates. Select TACAN channel 44 X-ray or check that it's already selected to have it ready in case it would be necessary to return immediately to the airfield, and to also have airfield distance indication. All instrument checks are complete.